folks, I'm Nick, and I hope you're hungry today because we're going to be making sushi platters, courtesy of Sushi Go. Now, this is a light card drafting game for 2 to 5 players. It's from Adventureland Games and designed by Phil Walker Harding. And what do I mean by card drafting? Well, if you're not familiar with the mechanic, it's very popular nowadays. And in a card drafting game, every player is going to be dealt a hand of cards from the main deck of the game. Everyone's simultaneously going to choose, and once they've all chosen, flip over a card and leave it in front of them. And the goal in this game in particular is they're trying to make matching sets of sushi to have or different kinds of sushi items you would have like in a sushi platter or a bento box. And once you've chosen your card, you're going to take your remaining cards in your hand, pass them to the player on your left, and you're going to keep doing that in a circle until everyone's out of cards, they've played all of their cards. Then you're going to score points. And then you're going to do that 2 more times in 2 more rounds. And you might choose to pass to the right in the second round if you do the variant, but you can still just keep doing to the left if you want. At the end of 3 rounds, whoever has the most points is the winner. So it's a very simple game. And like I said, this game is, this mechanic of card drafting is very popular. Probably the most popular card drafting board game at the moment is 7 Wonders. We're trying to actually build a civilization using card drafting. Seasons is probably one of my favorite games, and definitely my favorite card drafting game, where you're just wizards who are trying to use spells and summon familiars using cards. And Magic the Gathering, collectible card game, probably popularized the idea with its booster draft tournaments, where you open a random booster pack and take a card out and pass them to the rest of the people that you're playing with. Now the thing is, those games are much more complicated than Sushi Go, and in fact, 7 Wonders and Seasons, card drafting is just an aspect of the game. You have all these boards and bits and pieces and tokens that you're trying to keep track of, and much more longer and in depth. Sushi Go is a very light, very simple game. So with that in mind, is it right for every game group? Is it going to be right for you, the viewer, in your game group? Well, let's take a little overview of the game, then we'll come back and I'll let you know what I think. Alright, Sushi Go is a very fast, very light game. I'm just going to give you an overview, but even the overview is basically the entire game. So, for starters, everyone's going to take this pair of scoring cards, which are a little fiddly. I'm not necessarily in love with them, but I can't really think of a better way to do scoring that doesn't involve tokens. So it's going to have 1 through 10 on one side and 1 through 10. And then you're going to use this to sort of differentiate where you're at. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to be at 0, and you're just going to go down and leave it there, and that'll determine how many points you have after each scoring round. And then obviously you're going to flip it to 20 or 30 or wherever you're at, and on the other side it's 40, 50, or 60, which could happen. So everyone's going to get a pair of those. That's how you're going to determine scoring. And then everyone's going to get dealt out a certain hand of cards from the main deck of Sushi Go cards. And the number of cards you get depends on the number of players. In a 2-player game, it's 10 cards. And then for 3 players, it's 9 cards. 4 players, 8 cards. And 5 players, 7 cards. Once everyone's got their 7 cards, the basic game mechanic is this. And if you've played 7 Wonders, you'll be familiar with this, or any kind of card drafting game. Everyone's going to take one card. When everyone has chosen a card, they're going to turn it face down and leave it face down until everyone has decided what card they're going to play. When everyone's decided, they're going to flip the card over simultaneously, leave it in front of them, take that hand of cards that they have, which should now be 1 less than whatever they started with, 10, 9, 8, or 7, and pass it to the left. And that's going to happen 3 times. There's 3 rounds of the game. You're going to keep doing that, passing your cards until everyone's played until everyone's got that amount of cards out, whether it's 10 cards in front of you, 9 cards in front of you, 8 cards in front of you, or 7 cards in front of you. It's essentially when everyone's run out of cards. And you're going to pass to the left and each time. Now, if you want to do a variant, which is kind of like the 7 Wonders rule, you can pass to the left on the first round, then pass to the right on the second round, and then back to the left for the final 3rd rounds. However you want to do it, that's just a variant. Now, what does it actually mean when you play these cards? Well, you're going to try to score points every round. You score points at the end of your rounds, you add them up, and whoever has the most points at the end of 3 rounds is going to be the winner. But how do you actually do that? Well, different ways. So there's different types of, you're trying to make a sushi platter, and there's different types of things you're going to try to put on your sushi platter. One of them is tempura. So for every 2 tempura that you have down in front of you on the table, you're going to score 5 points. So if you have these 2, at least 2 of these on the table, you're going to get 5 points at the end of the round. 1 tempura gets you nothing. 3 tempura just gets you 5 points. If you can manage to do it twice, though, and get 2 sets of 2, then you're going to score a total of 10 points. One thing I should note, because some players I've played with have been confused by this, the icon up at the top it's just an easier way to remember what this card is. That doesn't mean that this counts as 2 tempura. That's just the picture again, but this is just 1 tempura card, okay, worth 1 tempura. Then you have dumplings. Now, dumplings are worth points equal to the amount of them you have on the table. So, or you get an amount of points equal to the number of dumplings you have. So if you've only got 1 dumpling, you're going to get 1 point. But if you manage to put 2 dumpling cards on the table, then you get a total of 3 points. If you have 3, you're going to get 6 points, and so on. The most you could get from having 5 total dumplings on the table in front of you at the end of the round is 15 points. And it's possible to do that twice if you're in a 2-player game with 10 cards, but it is highly unlikely. But again, you get this amount of points if you have that number of dumplings out, not for every dumpling card that you have. Then there's sushi, and sushi's come in 3 denominations, and this is why the tempura card throws some people off. If you see just one icon up there, this is worth 1 sushi, 2 sushi, and 3 sushi. But they all do the same thing. Whoever has the most sushis, as indicated by the icons at the end of the round, is going to score 6 points. Now, if there is a tie for whoever has the most sushi, then whoever's tied is going to split those points as evenly as possible, dumping any remainder. So if 2 people were tied for first, they're each going to get 3 points. If 3 people were tied, they're each going to get 2 points. If 4 people were tied, then they would each get 1 point and dump the other 2. That seems unlikely, though. And then there would be no second place in the case of a tie for first. But if there is not a tie for first and there is a second place person, at least one other person has put out sushi, then they're going to just score 3 points. And again, if there's a tie for second place, the points will be allotted evenly, dumping any remainder. Sashimi. With sashimi, you're trying to make a set of 3. For every 3 sashimi that you have on the table in front of you, you score 10 points. Again, it is possible to get 2 sets, although a little hard and difficult, but then you would get another 10 points. But 1 or 2 sashimi does nothing for you. 4 or 5 sashimi is only going to get you the 10 points. You're going to need a set of 3 in sets of 3. So, all right, now this one's kind of interesting because you have these 3 different types of nigiri cards here. You have egg nigiri, which if you just play it on its own is worth 1 point. Very simple. Every nigiri you play would be worth 1 point. Salmon nigiri, every salmon nigiri you play on its own is just 2 points. No big deal there. And squid nigiri, every squid nigiri you play is worth 3 points. Well, okay, that's not as many points as the other cards we've shown. But that's where this card comes in, wasabi. Now, wasabi on its own is worth nothing. If you play this card and it's just sitting there all by its lonesome at the end of the round, you get no points for it. However, the trick is, what you want to do is play wasabi first on the table, and then when you have, before the round is over, play a nigiri card on top of it. You can play 1 nigiri card per wasabi you already have on the table, and whatever nigiri card that is, the points are going to be tripled. So, if you just did the lowly egg nigiri, which is normally worth 1 point, you're going to play it literally on top of your wasabi, assuming you've already got the wasabi in play, and then instead, that whole card combination is going to be worth 3 points. Obviously, what you want to do is hope for the squid nigiri, in which case, for merely playing 2 cards, you're going to get 9 points. 3 times 3 is 9. So that's how wasabi and nigiri work. Now, in my haste, I almost forgot to tell you about the chopsticks card. Now, the chopsticks card is kind of interesting because what's going to happen is when you choose to play the chopsticks card, you're going to put it face down like you do your other cards. And when you flip it over, well, nothing's going to happen. It's going to say, I play the chopsticks card. Now, on subsequent turns, whenever you choose to activate it, you're going to put down a card like you would as normal, but instead you're going to say, and you have to say this or you can't do it, you're going to say, Sushi go! And instead, you're going to put down 2 cards. Essentially, what's going to happen is you're swapping the chopsticks for 2 cards. So you'll take 2 cards from whatever hand of cards you currently have. Then you're going to take the chopsticks and put it with the rest of the cards you're about to pass and give them to the next player. Now, if this is the last card, unfortunately, whoever gets stuck with it is stuck with it. It's not worth any points on its own. It just allows you to play 2 cards. It can be a handy thing to combo off of if you know or have a reasonable expectation that the hand of cards you're about to get is going, or one of the future hands of cards you're about to get before the end of the round is going to have 2 cards that you'll want to play. But, like I said, you'll pass it to the next person, and then it's their problem, whatever happens. And really, there's only one more card in the game, and that's pudding. Now, the interesting thing about pudding is that this is the one card that is going to carry over round to round. Normally, after you do scoring, you're going to wipe out your little tableau of cards, put them in the discard pile, and then everyone's going to get dealt new hands. But puddings will stay around in front of each player who has played them already. And they don't count for any scoring in the first 2 rounds. But after the 3rd round, when the game would end and you would do final scoring, whoever has the most pudding cards out on the table is going to score 6 points. Okay, well, that sounds great. And again, if just like with the sushi, if there is a tie, players are going to split the points evenly, dumping any remainder. But regardless of whether there's a tie or not, whoever has the least pudding, including if you have played 0 pudding cards, is going to get -6 points. And again, if people are tied for the least, then they're going to split those negative points, dumping any remainder. So it's just kind of a constant thing you have to worry about throughout the game. Should you bother taking them? Should you just try to score as many points as possible with the other sushi cards on your turn? That is for you to decide. But after everyone has played all of their cards in the rounds, they are going to score. They're going to score twice, and they're going to have a final round where they're going to score a 3rd time, score the pudding cards, and then whoever has the most points wins, with ties going to whoever has the most pudding cards in front of them. That's Sushi Go. Sushi Go is very simple. You only have the box and the cards, and they're high-quality cards. Everything is fine about them. And this game gets by very far on its charm and its quirkiness. I love the little cartoony art. Very simple, but it totally fits. I like it. Try not to think about the fact that someone's going to be eating these anthropomorphic creatures disguised as sushi. But nevertheless, it's really great and charming as far as the artwork goes, and just the idea that you're making a sushi platter. I mean, you know, it's obviously it's just a card drafting game, and the theme is not tied very tightly to the mechanics, but it's fine. The idea of it is fun, and it's so light and so fast that you can definitely get into it. And I really love this game. I really take into it. You know, it's funny, it kind of competes now for table space when we're looking for a filler with Love Letter, which I've talked about at length in other videos, and is another game that I really love. But you know, depending on the amount of players, Sushi Go can be a little bit longer. It's definitely a little more tense than Love Letter. It doesn't feel as fast, even though games of Love Letter could theoretically take longer than Sushi Go. So I don't know, I think I still like Love Letter more just because I still have that attachment to it. But Sushi Go is a fantastic game. It's a game, again, it's simple, but I think it takes a little bit of maneuvering. You're not really going to understand, like with any card drafting game, you're not really going to understand all the little intricacies of it with your first go. It's all about card counting, really. It's how likely is it that this sashimi is going to make it all the way around, because I'd much rather take this wasabi right now, or let's take those chopsticks now and hope that there's 2 things in the next hand or the next hand that I'm going to want to put down. Should I risk taking those chopsticks a second time if I get another pair? Those are the little bits of things that come out over time. But even so, this is a great teaching game. This is a great game for families. It's a great game for if you've got those relatives in your family who aren't going to sit down for a very complicated board game, but they do want something that's a little tricky and a little bit in depth, and you know doesn't have as much bluffing and deduction as a game like Love Letter. This is going to be the game for them. I really like it. It's not going to be for everyone. I mean, it is very simple. I mean, I don't see much that they can expand on with this game, although maybe they'll add different types of sushi. Who knows? But for what it is, for its price point, for the components that are in it, for just how transportable it is to just bring it out and whip it out, so to speak, whenever you go to a gaming group or a convention or whatever, when you need a filler, it's a really great game. I love the card drafting mechanic. I think that there's enough variety, enough strategy to give this game a lot of longevity, and I highly recommend it. So that's Sushi Go. It's from Adventureland Games and Phil Walker Harding, and my name is Nick. This is Board Game Brawl, reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way at a sushi restaurant if you must.